Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from Side Project Brewing Company based in St. Louis, Missouri. We've done a handful of their beers over the years, done a few collaborative beers they've done with other brewers, but it has definitely been a while since I've tried one. This one, as with all of the other beers that I've gotten, I did get from Tavour. Today we're jumping into a beer called Blueberry Flanders. Probably gives you an idea of what this is going to be. This is a wild ale clocking in at 6% ABV. It is oak aged and it has added blueberries. So the name of this beer, Blueberry Flanders, that's obviously a tip of the cap to the history of the Flanders Red style of beer, a naturally fermented sour beer produced in the Flanders region of Belgium that traditionally has added cherry. This, of course, blueberries. So, and stateside, so it's not a Flanders, but that's what they named it. It's just kind of a nod to the spiritual successor. But I think it's got the potential to be a very good beer. I've had plenty of blueberry beers over the years. I've had a few blueberry sours, most of which have been an added ingredient, not as the main star ingredient. So I'm really looking forward to this one. This is one I've had for a couple months that I set aside and kept nice and cold. And today's the day I want to get this one cracked. So starting with label art, there's not really much to talk about here. Just got a picture of a blueberry. I'm not sure the angle, how well that camera will pick it up, but a very clean design. Nonetheless, we're going to get this cracked. We're using our nice Delirium Tremens goblet, which works extremely well for sour beers. So let's just get this one poured right in. Yep, pouring a nice kind of purplish, reddish, bluish color. As expected with those added blueberries, it looks absolutely fantastic. Just a tiny bit of a head there because we are, of course, pouring it, but it's a sour. Very active in terms of carbonation. I expect that to settle down very quickly. Yeah, holding this up, it is a true deep purple, almost bordering with garnet undertones. Purplish, bluish red. That's the best way I could describe it. Looks absolutely lovely in the glass. This one does have a very pronounced aroma. Even as I'm holding this a good 2 feet away from my face, I can smell it, so we're going to get right up on it. Oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, that smells strongly. Strongly of Brettanomyces with tons of sour and tart on the nose, as well as blueberry and even some undertones of funk. So I'm expecting this to be a sour that is largely dominated by Brettanomyces kind of characteristic traits. I do expect the blueberry to pop through as well, but I'm expecting this may be one of those that has some kind of tutti fruity Brettanomyces undertone flavors. Maybe there will be a little bit of funk in the flavor. I expect it's going to have a pretty good bit of sharpness just based on the aroma alone, but it smells fantastic. It looks beautiful. It is hugely effervescent. Indeed, that head that it did form in the beginning is already completely out of the way as expected. So let's just jump right in, see what this one's about. Oh, yeah. Wow. That's a big beer. Big, big, big. Huge for a sour, especially considering it's only 6% ABV. Wow, this is massive. Okay, so what I got on the nose absolutely did not throw me in a wrong direction for what's translating into the glass on the flavor profile. If anything, it's far more intense than I ever would have guessed just based on the aroma. And the aroma was quite pungent. So first things first, before we get into the flavor profile, let's talk about the texture, the weight, and the body. 6% on a sour. This one feels a nice full medium. It's not super heavy. It's not super light. It matches roughly a 6% ABV. So weight-wise, it feels right to me. In terms of the mouthfeel, this is one where you can feel the natural underlying resistance of a 6% ABV beer, but it's not super viscous. It's not super heavy. It feels right. So the body and the mouthfeel feel exactly right for what I was expecting, and they work perfectly well in tandem. So now that we've talked texture, let's talk about the actual flavors here. So the first thing that I got as soon as I swallowed was just a massive, massive kick of sour and tart. I mean, huge pungent, sour, and tart. This could put many kettle sours to shame with just the intensity of the sour and the tart formula coming through. And indeed, I could clearly pick up Brettanomyces on the nose, and that does come through in the glass. There are slight funky undertones, and there are slight bits of tutti frutti, but by and large, what the Brettanomyces and any other underlying souring agents, maybe lactobacillus, maybe adding to the formula, is really intensity of sour and tart. So there's only a slight suggestion of funk, a slight suggestion of those tutti frutti notes that you can often get with Brettanomyces beers, but big, sour, and tart, and then working strictly in tandem with the blueberry, which also comes through very, very clearly. So really, there's nothing in this beer that's surprising me at all, but what I am getting is absolutely fantastic. And this is one of those sours that is for people that really, really love a good, strong sour beer. This is not a light sour. It's not a Saison. It's not a Berliner Weisse. This is much more akin to a big craft kettle sour. It's hugely sour and hugely tart. It is in your face. You could use the word astringent here. I don't think that would be out of place, just to try to paint the picture of just how intense the sour and the tart is on this beer. And then that does settle down, of course, within the first 10-15 seconds, and then you're left with this really nice, super clean, lingering, powerful blueberry flavor that really does last quite a long time. So the sour and tart actually, in terms of the finish on this, it lasts longer than your average sour, to be certain, but that gets out of the way and kind of just opens back up to this beautiful undercurrent of blueberry, and its big true tastes like fresh, ripe blueberries. It's absolutely fantastic. In terms of the length, much, 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 much longer than your average sour beer. That is 100% fact. And in terms of kind of textures and other aspects of the finish, this is a sour, so you may expect a decent bit of dryness, maybe some truncation of the finish. This is not dry at all. It's actually very wet and very round all the way to the end. It doesn't dry out the palate, not even on the tip. And it actually, that kind of aspect of it, I think, is helping to extend the length of the finish on this beer so long. But it's very, very nice. So I'm going to jump back in for sip number 2. Let this open back up, see if I missed anything. We're going to talk about the balance. I think that's the last real thing to talk about here. But first sip, I love it. Big sour for big sour fans. Take 2. Huge. Huge sour tart. I love it, and it even makes my face kind of wrinkle up a bit. Wow. It's just so big. The sour and the tart. And it's up front. That's when you get the slight suggestions of funk and the slight suggestions of tutti frutti. It comes in tandem with the sour and the tart. So there could be a bigger presence of both of those aspects, but the sour and tart is so front and center, it kind of dials the rest of it back. And yeah, we're now getting near the 10-15 second mark. The intensity of the sour and tart is starting to dial back. There's still lingering sour on the back of the palate, but now that blueberry flavor is really starting to open up. So for me, a beer like this, a natural wild ale, I mean, it's really tough to talk about balance other than what they did with it. This, they oak aged. Oak aged beers tend to have this distinct woodiness to them that you can really discern. It's easier to tell in some beer styles to others. Sours are a beer style that does lend to oak aging, as do lighter kind of ales and lagers. In this one, you do get a little bit of that oak woodiness on the back. You can taste it, and it's really comes in around the 20-ish second mark, really when the sour and the tart starts to really start to taper off to the end of it, and it's just left with the blueberries, then you get this nice woody undertone. So really, for a beer like this, the balance, we're talking about the additives, the volume of them, whatever they did with the barrel. In this, I wouldn't change a thing. I think it's fantastic. And then, of course, because it's a wild ale, you can't really control what happens with the yeast and other souring agents, but whatever happened to this specific beer, it's absolutely fantastic. I think the balance is perfection. This is just a seriously good beer. This is a big sour beer for people that like really big in your face sours, but I love this one. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, count my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Side Project Brewing Company's Blueberry Flanders. This is a wild ale clocking in at 6% ABV. This was oak aged, had added blueberries, and Side Project is based specifically in St. Louis, Missouri. It's also worth mentioning, and they tell you right on the label, this is one that they've released different batches of over the years. This specific one is blend number 3, for what it's worth. So, jumping right into this beer, this was just extremely well done. I had a suspicion of what I might be getting into just based strictly off of the incredible aroma alone, and it did not disappoint. It pretty much checked all the boxes across the board of my expectations, and what I got was absolutely fantastic. Indeed, much like the last beer we reviewed, there was only one category here that did not get a perfect 10 out of 10, so we're just going to jump straight to that. On this beer, that was the finish. Now, this is a wild ale, so it's not a style that you would expect to have a very, very long finish. This one actually did. It wasn't quite as long as I expected, given the overall absolute intensity and pungency of flavor in sour and tart, and it also lacked some of that quintessential dryness at all. This one was kind of wet and round all the way to the end, which is not quite as common. You do typically get some level of drying on a sour. This was very wet, and it wasn't quite as long as I expected for the intensity, but these are two very minor nitpicks. I only docked 1 point, so the finish does get a 9 out of 10, which does leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the remaining 9 categories. That is aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling and intangible, and example of style. Which does, of course, bring the total score on Side Project Brewing Company's Blueberry Flanders to a 99 out of 100. So, lucky beers I've had, indeed, as of late, and 2 back-to-back 99s, both just shy of perfection by just a hair. Absolutely fantastic. If you like big, sour beers, this is one for you. And again, I gotta re-emphasize this. This would put many kettle sours to shame. So if you like the lighter sours, the Saisons, the Berliner Weisses, and you don't like the intense sours, I would maybe not recommend this one. But if you like the big, bold, in-your-face sour beers, this absolutely is one to keep on your list. They do put this out with regularity, different batches, blends over time. So just keep your eyes out. I got mine from Tavour. Definitely worth picking up. Folks, that is today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.